at 6:07 p.m. Pursuant to Executive Order N-25-20 and N-20-29-20, members of the Planning Commission and staff are participating in this meeting via video link, Zoom, and/or teleconference. This is not an in-person meeting. Members of the public may observe this meeting on the City of Hawthorne website or on YouTube. Now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, will be led by Commissioner Barbero.
Right hand over your heart. Please begin. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Oral communications. This is the time for oral communications. Because this meeting is not an in-person meeting, members of the public...
Chairperson Smith, I think you forgot the roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. Sorry.
All right.
Secretary, would you please call the roll, please?
Chairperson Smith.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable.
Present.
Commissioner Ortiz. Absent. Commissioner Caraveo.
Present.
And Commissioner Richard.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oral communications. This is the time for oral communications. Because this meeting is not an in-person meeting, members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting were asked to participate by calling or emailing the Planning Department no later than 5:30 p.m. today, noting the item on which the member wants to speak. This information was provided on the agenda posted in compliance with the Brown Act on Friday, June 26, 2020. At this time, if there were any messages left for oral communication, staff will call the public member, place them on speakerphone, or read those messages for those individuals that provided written comments. Remarks are still limited to 3 minutes in duration. Staff, is there any participation from the public for oral communications? This is the time for the public to address the Planning Commission and the airport zoning.
Chairman Smith, there are no speakers for oral communication.
Thank you. Now move on to the Planning Commission, Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar. I see there are no items. We'll recess the Airport Zoning Commission and the Planning Commission consent calendar. And it appears there are no items on that. Continued public hearings, no items. New public hearings. Zone Text Amendment 2020 ZA03. Now is the time.
Chairman Smith, may I interrupt you?
Yes.
I'm going to ask if the commission would be amenable to hearing item number 2 first, which is Zone Text Amendment 2019 ZA05, before going to, in fact, item 3 and 4. I'd like to have the commission take the items in that order for the benefit of the public and also for a commissioner who does need to leave the meeting a little early.
Sure.
So I'd like to do item 2, 3, 4, and 1 in that order.
Certainly. Okay.
Is there any objections to that?
No objections? Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
At this time, I would like to state for the record that I have a potential conflict of interest in item 1, 2, adding a new definition of secondary residence and related changes to the city's short-term rental ordinance at chapter 17.74, based on my real property interest and specifically the fact that I own more than one dwelling in the city of Hawthorne. I am disqualifying myself from participating in this matter as it reasonably foreseeable that action on Zone Text Amendment 2019 ZA05 and Resolution number 2020-13 may have a material financial effect on my real property interest. At this time, I will be stepping off the dais and asking Vice Chair Olson Evelyn to preside over this matter. Thank you.
And Chief, if you could please mute Chairman Smith and also remove the video. He is supposed to exit the meeting. Thank you. That's the only way we could do that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Vice Chair Al-Shanabli.
So item number 2, Zone Text Amendment 2019 ZA05. Before we open the public hearing for Zone Text Amendment 2019 ZA05, we have a brief statement from,
That was done.
sorry. Okay, so that was
No
it.
problem.
So now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider Zone Text Amendment 2019 ZA05. Senior Planner Maria Maharik will present the staff report.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. I need to share my screen, and hopefully you'll be able to see that. Let me see here. Oh, Captain Ishii, am I able to share my screen?
Try now.
Aha, there we go. Let's see. Can everyone see that?
No.
Not yet. Hold on one second.
Oh.
Maybe if I move it over. No?
Mm-mm.
Melissa asked, maybe we can take a quick recess.
Okay. Vice Chair Al-Shanabli, can we take a quick break, just a couple of minutes, and we'll reconvene so that we can get that technology taken care of?
Of course. A couple of minutes
Okay.
to reconvene. Thank you.
Great, thank you. There we go.
But you're able to see it?
I can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, ma'am, go ahead. We're good. We're live.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I am presenting the amendment to the Zone Text Amendment 2019 ZA05, and it is in regards to adding a new definition for the short-term rentals. As you recall, initially in October of 2019, we held a study session, and consequently we approved a short-term rental ordinance. And most everything that you see on this next screen, where these are permitted, hosted, unhosted, and vacation rentals, remain the same, except obviously vacation rentals are prohibited in commercial and industrial zones. One of the things that we were asked, and we did an analysis on, is allowing secondary residences as a dwelling that is not occupied by the owner of a primary residence, but is owned by a person whose primary residence is in the city of Hawthorne. And one of the things that staff did is we conducted a GIS analysis, and we utilized mailing addresses rather than the location address, because that seemed to be a bit more accurate in terms of who owned property. So by conducting that type of analysis with the mailing addresses, we were able to determine that approximately 330 persons or entities owned about 838 properties in the city. And out of those, 249 were owner occupied, and the remainder were rentals. So in determining that, we wanted to make sure that the number of secondary residences that were available for vacation rentals, essentially, we would still preserve the availability of the long-term rental properties. And based on that, we determined that it was a good beginning or a good start to allow a maximum of 10 properties to be issued a yearly permit on a first-come, first-served basis. So this amendment basically just reiterates what the initial definitions were, but we've added a new definition as secondary residence, as you can see from the screen, which means it is a dwelling not occupied by the owner as a primary residence, but owned by persons whose primary residence is in the city of Hawthorne. Therefore, no more than 10 of these permits for a secondary residence will be issued by the city per year, and as I mentioned, on a first-come, first-served basis. We also updated the other definitions within the code, which is the home sharing, so it reflects what a secondary residence is specifically within the vacation rental. So only those persons who are residents of the city and own second dwelling units may rent these for more than 90 days. Anybody else who is not a resident of the city can only rent these vacation rentals on a 90-day basis. So that was the only change, and we've capped it at 10 based on the GIS analysis. I did provide a map that was created where I just showed all of the residential zones, the duplexes, the triplexes, and the condos in the city. And they were all highlighted in different colors so you can distinguish them. And this is just the total. This map, or potential, obviously it's not, you're not going to see the entire city as a short-term rental. But I just wanted to illustrate this in a map so you can see precisely where all of these properties were located. So the rest of the ordinance remains the same. The permitted STRs per parcel for hosted and unhosted are the same in the same types of developments. The operational requirements remain the same, and the hosting platform requirements remain the same. And with that, staff is recommending that based on the desire to provide additional opportunities for short-term rentals in the city of Hawthorne and to those residents who live in Hawthorne, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt PC Resolution 2020-13, recommending that the City Council approve the City Council Ordinance number 2206. And with that, I conclude my staff report, and I am available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff? This is the time for questions, staff only.
I had a question. So for the 10, is that for people that live within the city? Only, I guess, 10 per year are allowed to have that as a short-term rental?
Correct. So, for instance, as an example, if I have my primary residence in the city of Hawthorne, and I am a resident of Hawthorne, but I own another property, I have the ability to potentially obtain a permit to rent that as a short-term rental. So only 10 will be available on a first-come, first-served basis. But if I only have a property in the city, but I do not live in the city, I'm limited to those 90 days as it was originally written in the ordinance. And that remains the same.
And do we have anything in this new code that says, like, if somebody has 3 properties, they can't rent out 2 of those properties as short-term rentals?
We do not, if I recall correctly. Melissa, we only placed the one, right? They can rent all.
So, yeah, if a person owns multiple properties
Yeah.
in the city, they can, and they're separate properties, they can rent their own as a home sharing. They can rent the others as one other or 2 others potentially as secondary residences. And if they don't live in the city, they can rent those as vacation rentals. The caps that we put were based on the properties itself. So if it was a triplex, you could rent out 2, not all 3. But in terms of how many people, if people owned more than one property, we did not put any kind of cap on that.
Yeah. And based on the analysis, as you can see on the screen, we were able to determine that approximately 838 properties are owned by persons. So those 330 persons own more than one property in the city. But only 249 of those are owner-occupied. So 249 people can potentially rent that many, but not more than that. Because that's what caps it, the fact that you must live in the city and to be able to rent a secondary vacation rental.
Okay, so that might be something that we might need to look into as far as if somebody owns, 3 separate properties, maybe only limiting them to only have one short-term rental. Or, I mean, they can rent their personal property that they live in, and then that second property as a short-term as well.
The secondary residence.
Yeah, the secondary residence as a short-term as well. But then that third residence, they would have to have it, for more long-term rental. And then just also to be fair to, especially since we're only given, 10, allowing only 10 properties. I mean, somebody could come in first and then, potentially put their 2 extra properties on as short-term rental. Kind of making it not fair for the other people.
Okay. So through the chair, Melissa, can we make that change and still take?
We can, I would suggest that what we do is we proceed with the ordinance as written, if it's the pleasure of the Planning Commission to send that to the City Council, and we'll work on another amendment and bring that back as a follow-up amendment to the one that we're presenting to the City Council. I would do it that way just to make sure our noticing was about secondary residences. And so that's what we can vote on today. I think it's a little bit of a different topic. It's a great suggestion, but a little different. And we should have that be done separately at a different meeting.
Or
So we
you
can do
s-
that. You can direct us to do that, and we'll come back. But my suggestion is, my advice is that you just proceed with the ordinance as it's written,
and
and
so
not
that
make it an interlineation.
and so that amendment would be to the short-term rental is what you're saying.
Yeah, we would just look at it at the whole ordinance, and we'll put language in there that talks about number of properties owned by any person that wishes to do home sharing. It would probably be a separate section of the ordinance just to address that.
And so today what we're discussing is just the definition of.
What you're looking at is
In the cap.
potentially adding that new type of, I call it a new type of use, secondary residence. So we're adding the definition, and we're indicating that it will not be considered a vacation rental, it would be considered a home sharing, and that it would be, and that these permits would be capped at 10. That's pretty much what you're looking at today, that limited
Okay.
scope.
That's all my questions for staff.
Okay.
Is there anyone else of the planning commission that wishes to ask a question? Doesn't look like it. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to address the planning commission on this issue? And I believe that we are the applicant, Melissa, correct?
That's correct, yeah. So we
Correct.
don't need to, we can move on.
Okay, so Mrs. Crosswhite, are there any documents that you wish to place into administrative records, such as late communications?
We did not get any that I'm aware of.
No.
Any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or questions from staff?
I have some additional comments. I know we brought this up before, and it was very controversial between the commissioners. I know some didn't want to have this new definition, and I was thinking just to be, fair, and maybe we can have this maybe as a trial run, like have a sunset to this, maybe like a year or two, and see if we need to adjust the 10. Maybe we can have more or less, just so we can be fair to all the property owners, and then especially the ones that are kind of struggling through all of this, COVID-19, that kind of need that extra income. This would at least kind of allow them to have some type of money coming in. But yeah, I was just thinking if we can have some type of maybe like a year trial or something like that for this.
If I may, Melissa, is there a possibility,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's possible, but is there a possibility of adding item will be revisited within a year, or?
We can do that formally in the ordinance, or in your resolution as a recommendation, or we can just, we've done it many times where we kind of make a notation that we need to revisit this in a year. So however you'd like to do it would be fine. If you want it in the, I would suggest putting it in the, you'd put it in the ordinance. You'd put it in the ordinance if you truly want it to just expire. Now, but if you do that, I mean, the council may or may not agree with that. It's really up to you. You could also just make it a suggestion. If you make it a suggestion, perhaps that is more palatable, but it's up to you.
I mean, the way that I view it, it's not as an expiration to this resolution, just like a recommendation to revisit. Like just to see if it works, if we need to change anything. Not as, I mean, not saying that this is only valid for 1 year.
Okay, so then we could do that. We can add to the resolution that you would approve today that you would like this ordinance to be reviewed in a year.
Okay.
That's how I would do it.
Okay. Do I have any other commissioners? No, I'm sorry that I can't see you all, so, okay. I now formally close the public hearing on this item and call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on this item. Do I have a vote? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Commissioner Ryan
Okay.
made a motion, okay,
And I'll second.
okay.
Is that to approve it with that
With the-
recommendation?
To approve with the recommendation, sir.
Okay. Okay, got it. And just to clarify, we are the applicant, but this is a public hearing, but there was no one that, wished to speak. We didn't get any requests for participation.
Yes, I did
Clarify
ask
that.
that question, correct? I did.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay. Would you like me to take the vote?
Yes, please, Melissa, please take the vote.
Oh. Okay, so, and to clarify, the motion was to adopt resolution of the Planning Commission 2020-13, recommending that the City Council adopt ordinance 2206, but with the inclusion of language in the resolution that provides that this ordinance, should be revisited within 1 year. So with that, Chairperson Smith is not, capable, he is
and-
abstaining, so that's out. Vice
I just had
Chairperson
a
Ashanable.
question.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then, so what about the only allowing, a person to have one extra rental property? How would that be a recommendation?
That
as
would be a
well, or-
separate, just give us direction to do that, and I've taken it, I don't think you have to make a motion for that. We've taken that direction, and we will go ahead and move forward with that. Is there any objection from, you can object to that, but if not, we'll take it as a directive and move forward. Okay, so,
Okay.
looks like we'll be moving forward with that. Thank you for that clarification. Chairperson Ashanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
Commissioner Richard.
Yes.
Okay, so that is three persons in favor and none against, so the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
And I believe Commissioner Richard, did you need to leave?
We're good?
Okay. So as soon as we get Chairperson Smith back, you can go ahead. Thank you so much for attending.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Chairperson Smith? We cannot hear you. I think you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
I did. Okay,
There you go.
can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
ready for item number 3. Conditional use permit 2020 CU02 and density bonus 2020 DB02. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider conditional use permit 2020 CU02 and density bonus 2020 DB02. Senior Planner Chris Palmer will present the staff report. Christopher? Mr. Palmer, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, I need to share my screen. Okay, I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay, go right ahead.
Is my screen being shared?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yes.
see.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, conditional use permit 2020 CU02 and density bonus 2020 DB02 is for 13927 Shadron Avenue. The request is to build a 7-unit townhome style apartment inclusive of affordable units. Before you, just a rendering of what that would look like. They're proposing 4 residential structures. 3 of the structures would have 2 units, and 1 structure will be a standalone detached townhome style unit. What you see before you is the site plan. The parking requirement, because they're providing an affordable unit, is 14 parking stalls. They're providing 18 parking stalls. these are the elevations. It's approximately 33.5 feet tall. They have asphalt shingles, windows with treatment that have bars as far as, not bars, but railing, decorative railing, and the garage and the front door. The project location is on Chatteron Avenue between 139th and Rosecrans Avenue near Crenshaw. The project site is surrounded by a mix of high-density residential units in varying heights and varying densities. R3 is the majority of the property that's surrounding it, and to the rear of the property is R2 zoning. The applicant is proposing to build the units on a 48 by 310 lot that's zoned high-density residential. And the units are 2,211 square feet each and have 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. The applicant is proposing to build 7 units. The municipal code allows for a total of 5 units, but since the applicant is proposing to build one of the base units at an affordability level of low income, he's allowed a density bonus. And the density bonus he's allowed is another 2 units. So that's where the total of 7 units come from. One of the units will be income restricted to families that receive low income, and he's proposing to rent these apartments. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA. This concludes my report. I'm available if you have any questions. Staff recommends approval of the project.
Okay, thank you. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for the staff? This is the time for questions of staff only. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. I was just trying to make sure that the affordable unit is similar, has same facilities as the rest of the units.
Thank you for the question. That's a requirement of state law and our municipal code. And so the only thing that I would recommend is if it ever became a question is to not allow the rear unit, the last standalone unit, to be the affordable unit, because it's the one that's least like the other ones, just because it doesn't have any shared walls. So as long as it's one of the other units that have attachment, all the units are similar in amenities.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Okay. Is the applicant present and do they wish to speak?
Yes, the applicant is a part of the meeting. They're in the waiting room currently.
Okay.
Abdul Majumber.
I'm sorry?
I was just letting the chief know what the gentleman's
Oh.
name was.
Okay.
The applicant is present, and applicant, you're on mute right now.
Okay. Would you wish to speak? If you would, go right ahead. He may be having trouble.
Yeah, he may be looking to unmute. It's at the very corner, the very top. There should be a button, sir, that says unmute of your picture. I think he's still trying. Sir, do you want to call? If you have too much trouble with that, you can call me.
Oh, there he is.
There you are. Okay. I think we have you now. Can you hear us, Mr. Majumdar? Mr. Majumdar, do you hear us?
I don't think so.
I don't think
No,
so.
probably not. Let's see. Mr. Palmer, do you have his phone number? Do you want to call him? Or, you know what, he called me. Let me see if I'll call him quickly. Let's see.
Can anybody out there read lips?
You don't see it? It's the very corner. There's a little blue area at the very corner, the top right, and it should say unmute, and you could press that.
Right.
Or how about the bottom? There might be a little red microphone.
Melissa, he's unmuted, but we still can't hear him.
Oh, okay. So, sir, it looks like you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. So I'm going to put you on speaker right now, and we'll have you communicate and participate in that manner. Is that okay with you? Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker right now. Okay, sir, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Commissioners, can you hear him?
Yes, I heard him.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So there we have.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Sir, this is the time for you to speak if you wish to speak to the commission.
Well, I requested to build the 7 units on the property I have with a huge land on 13927 Chadron Avenue. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So waiting for their approval. It's a huge land in the back. I have 4 units up front. Is not the efficient use, best and the highest use of the property. So I'm requesting councils to please allow me to build 7 units. And I'm dedicating 1 to the affordable housing,
Okay.
low income.
Okay, thank you, sir. Were there any questions from the commission?
Okay.
Does not look like there are questions, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Chairman Smith, we are on. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission on this issue?
Right. Is there anyone else waiting to speak on it or anything?
We, Senior Planner Palmer, we had a communication
Yes.
that arrived by email?
We received an email from a company referring to themselves as YIMBY Law, and they recommended approval of the project. I'm summarizing because it was like 2 pages that they wrote, but they wrote in favor of the project. They outlined state law, and they said that state law supports the project, and basically they said that they compelled the commission to approve the project.
Do you happen to have that on your screen, Chris, so that you can share that?
I can get it for you. Give me a second, okay?
So we do that, and then because this is testimony, what I'll do is, it is a little bit of a long letter, but I'm going to read it to the commission so that it's in the record. So it says, Dear Hawthorne Planning Commission, YIMBY Law submits this letter to inform you that the Planning Commission has an obligation to abide by all relevant state housing laws when evaluating the above captioned proposal, including the Housing Accountability Act. California Government Code Section 65589.5, the Housing Accountability Act, prohibits localities from denying housing development projects that are compliant with the locality zoning ordinance or general plan at the time of the application was deemed complete, unless the locality can make findings that the proposed housing development would be a threat to public health and safety. The most relevant section is copied below. That I'm not going to read. It is a copy of subsection J of California Government Code Section 65589.5. And it continues, the applicant proposes to construct 7 new townhome-style apartment units, including 1 affordable unit. The above captioned proposal is zoning compliant and general plan compliant. Therefore, your local agency must approve the application or else make findings to the effect that the proposed project would have an adverse impact on public health and safety as described above. YIMBY Law is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation whose mission is to increase accessibility and affordability of housing in California. I'm signing this letter both in my capacity as Executive Director of YIMBY Law and as a resident of California who is affected by the shortage of housing in our state. Sincerely, Sonia Traus, Executive Director, YIMBY Law, and the address is 1260 Mission Street, San Francisco, California, 94103. Okay,
Thank you.
and there is the letter. Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think it's written here. Sir, Mr. Majumbar, do you have any additional comments?
Not really, no.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I would appreciate the approval, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Crossway, are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communications?
No, just the letter that I read, which
Right.
we're seeing it as testimony or late communications. I read it into the record, but that's all that we received, that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or questions from staff?
One more question. For the affordable housing, our city, we're the ones that review the applicants.
I don't understand your question, Commissioner.
So the applicants that would apply for this housing, does the city review the applicants to
Yeah.
allow them? Okay. That's all my questions.
Okay, is there any other questions? Madam Secretary, did we lose one of the commissioners while I was accusing myself?
We did. He had to leave early.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I now formally close the public hearing on this item and call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on the item. So do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Smith, I think there was a question that wasn't answered. Was it answered, Jason?
Oh, yes, it was answered.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, he had said yes. Okay. So, does anyone like to make a motion, one of the commissioners?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. Will the secretary please call for the vote?
Yes. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable,
Yes.
and Commissioner Caraveo.
Yes.
Okay, so with 3 commissioners in favor, the motion to adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2020-10 approving CUP number 2020 CU02 and density bonus 2020 DB02 is approved. Mr. Mayumbar, you've read all the conditions that are contained in your approvals, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and
Yes.
do you agree to all of them?
yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So the motion passes and the application is approved.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to conditional use permit 2019 CU07. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider conditional use permit 2019 CU07. Senior Planner Chris Palmer will present a staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner. This project, we're going to request that it be continued to the next regular scheduled meeting of July 15th. I talked to the applicant. The applicant is unavailable for this meeting, and that there was someone in the public that wanted to speak on this, and I talked to them as well, and they prefer to speak on the topic when the applicant is able to speak on the topic. So instead of opening it and continuing the public hearing, we just ask that this item be continued to the next meeting of July 15th.
Okay.
Right, so we're just, we're not gonna open the public hearing, we're just going to continue it to, I'd like to put the date of the meeting is,
July 15th.
July 15th at 6 p.m. via Zoom, potentially. So, if you'd like to take a motion, you can do so, do this by motion. Otherwise, there's no objections, we're just gonna continue this.
Through the chair, I would like to just ask that if there's anyone from the public that we may not know about that wants to speak on this, just to pause to see if anyone's out there. Seeing none, thank you.
There was no one. So it's continued. Okay,
Move up to item 1 on the agenda,
yep, we're going back to item 1 now.
Zone Text Amendment 2020 ZA03. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider Zone Text Amendment 2020 ZA03. Senior Planner Maria Majeric will present a staff report. Are you there, Maria?
Let's see, I believe she's there.
Oh, yeah, I think she is.
Okay. Nothing showing.
Let me check on her.
Okay.
Oh, she's there. We can't hear you, Maria.
Hi, okay, yeah, I couldn't
There you go.
unmute. I do have to share another screen. I apologize, she, one more. I'm getting a message, host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Chief, do you want us to take a couple minutes break?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's take a 3-minute break. Thank you.
I can see it, yes.
Okay, great. Are we still on a short break?
No, we can go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Okay,
don't think Melissa's back though.
yeah, Melissa stepped away.
Yes. She
Yeah, let's-
requested to take a 3-minute break, so let's hang on for just a few
Okay, hold on.
minutes and she'll be back.
Yeah.
DB03. And this is in regards to the accessory dwelling units that, if you recall, we had, 1 or 2 workshops in relation to this. And so now we've come back with a full ordinance, for you to recommend to the city council. And with that, I will begin the presentation. So, as you know, what is an ADU? And ADUs are also known as granny flat second units, in-law units, and they can be attached or detached residential units that are subordinate to the principal use on the same lot. So there is typically another single-family residence or multifamily residence. The new state laws also have junior ADUs, and junior ADUs are units that are no larger than 500 square feet. They can be smaller, but they are contained entirely within the single-family residence that exists on the lot. Not multifamily, only single-family residence. So a little background. As you know, the purpose of the ADU law was to encourage development of more affordable long-term housing for the residents of the state of California. We are in a housing crisis with very expensive housing that is sometimes not affordable, obviously, for many of our population. Back in 2017, cities were restricted by several Senate bills or Assembly bills that were passed, and it was to prompt the development of ADUs and junior ADUs. In 2019, the state enacted a series of additional regulations, and it was with the intention to reduce any barriers and to streamline the approvals. Many of the cities had placed more regulations on their ADU laws and ordinances in order to prevent, in some cases, the development of these types of uses. So any ordinance that was contrary to state law, and those included the ones in 2017 and the ones in 2019, were therefore invalid, null and void. Any of those portions that did not allow for the creation of ADUs, that is what occurred. So together, some of the major changes that were included and that the city is adopting are the following. So there is a regulation that cities are not permitted to utilize the discretionary review to permit ADUs and JADUs. So those are strictly prohibited from us allowing us to do that type of review. So we must do it ministerially, and we must allow them. ADUs have to be allowed and approved in all residentially or mixed-use zones. So these are lots of single-family dwellings on them or existing multifamily dwellings, and that's a big change. We also can permit JADUs on single-family lots, but the difference for these is that for junior ADUs, we will be permitted to place deed restrictions on these. But for ADUs, we are not. What that means is that we cannot require the property owner to live on a property where there is only an ADU. But we can if they are proposing a JADU as well. So ADUs can be attached or detached and located within the proposed or existing primary dwelling. And this is another large change that the state has specified, that they can be garages, storage areas, any similar uses or accessory structures on the property that can be converted to ADUs. And as I mentioned, the JADUs are permitted, but they do require a deed restriction, and they can only be proposed within the existing single-family dwelling or accessory structure. I believe our code only says single-family dwelling. So the deed restrictions that I said is the large thing. So the location and creation of these JADUs are allowed in all of our zones in that are residentially zoned in our city, including those mixed-use zones with residential components in them. So part of the ordinance that if the Planning Commission recommends to take to the City Council, we have some standards, and these are for ADUs that are attached or detached. We have a minimum and a maximum, and the maximum is 1,000 square feet that the city will be allowing. The state code allows us to go all the way up to 1,200, but because of the density that we already experience and the parking issues that we all know we are having in the city, we decided to go ahead and just limit that maximum to 1,000 square feet. But the cities must allow an ADU of no less than 800 square feet, and that could be attached or detached. So regardless of the minimum or maximum, an 800 square foot ADU will be permitted. And we can't impose any more setbacks other than the 4-foot setback. That is the maximum that we can impose. The property owner can, provide a much larger setback, but that's all that we can impose. In terms of the parking, we can only require one, but even that is in a driveway. So we can't say, no, you can't have this ADU because you need to build a garage. That's not what the law permits us to do. In terms of JADU development, as I mentioned, we are requiring that it is owner occupied, the property is, I should say, not necessarily the JADU, and a deed restriction will be required. The maximum size is 500 square feet, and we are requiring this to be within the primary building, which is the residential building on the lot. In terms of parking, we are following state law. No parking can be required if there is an ADU located within a half-mile walking distance of parking of public transportation, and that includes bus benches. So as you can see from the screen, there are a number of things that are written within the state law that prohibits us from requiring parking. So that's one of the things that is a big change in this state law. Density for multifamily lots, and this is also a large change. We must allow ADUs on properties that already have multiple units on it. They may convert existing non-habitable square footage within the building to convert that to an ADU, but it can't exceed 25% of the number of units on the site. So that calculation will be very careful in making sure that we do that when we start receiving these types of requests. And we are seeing some already for multifamily dwellings. I received a couple this week, in fact. So sites are permitted to construct 2 ADUs or to convert detached accessory buildings, garages, carports, covered parking structures, but the maximum is 2. And that's for the detached. So converted spaces can be the garages, the basements, attics, storage areas, or any other non-habitable area. So the state has really opened this up, and since our existing code is null and void, we must abide by these regulations. So in terms of statistics, currently, as of June, we have 70 ADUs. There has been some conversations about JADUs, but no plans have been received thus far that we are aware of. So right now, 70 since 2018. So this concludes my staff report. I just wanted to highlight the major components of this ordinance. There are a few more. It's pretty extensive, and there are a lot more regulations in there, but they're straightforward, and we'll be able to follow it very closely when plans are submitted. So staff will be looking into making sure that we are abiding by the state law. So the proposed amendments to the Hawthorne Municipal Code will bring the city into conformance with all applicable state ADU and JADU laws. And accordingly, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2020-12, which was attached as Attachment 5 in your packet. And we are recommending that recommend that the City Council adopt Ordinance 2205. And that concludes my staff report. If the Commission has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the Planning Commission have any question for staff? It's time for questions of the staff only.
I do have some questions, because I know this is a very serious topic, and that there's, little that much that we can do as far as with the state regulations. But I know there's, room that we do have as far as like if they wanted to exceed the minimum requirements. And I was just trying to see, because I know some of our commission members are out. Is it possible to do similar to what we did for the short-term rental, on coming up with like different questions or categories to see what we want to do as far as the code is required? Because I know that, sometimes we might even want to allow for maybe a two-story structure, or if they wanted to propose a two-story structure, something like that, or different requirements, like to maybe instead of the 1,000, maybe only limit it to 800 square feet for accessory dwelling units. That way we can have more of a discussion on it to see, how each, plan commissioner feels about these conditions.
Okay.
And then,
Are there any other questions?
We can just, go through it like one by one, like how we did with the short-term rental.
Okay. Maria, in general, we did track the state law, and there were a couple of areas where we did change, where we could. Maria, do you want to go through those? We had very limited discretion, as the planning commission is aware, right? So, there were only 2 or 3 areas where we could make those determinations, where we had some discretion. Do you want to go over those, Maria?
Sure. So one of the things was to limit the size of the unit, and rather than go all the way through 1,200 square feet, which is what the state law says we could do, we decided to limit it to 1,000 square feet, because many of our calls, I guess, we were receiving, the property owners wanted to place 2 bedrooms, and in order for it to be a little easier to accommodate 2 bedrooms, we decided to limit it to 1,000 square feet maximum. So that was one. The second one is we did permit the 16-foot height maximum, but we did not allow for it to be second stories. So nothing above a garage, we were able to limit that. And the reasoning behind that is, if a property owner wants to build just a regular second unit that has larger, that is not an ADU, those are only permitted as 1 stories. So we wanted to mimic that and make sure that we maintain that 1-story limit at 16 feet. The other thing that we made sure is that any proposed ADUs were permitted in the rear of the primary property, because we, there are some loopholes, I guess for a better word, in which we were receiving calls where someone was going to build a very large unit at the rear of the primary house that was there. And the primary house typically are smaller, anywhere from 8 to 1,000 square feet. And so they were designating that as the ADU and then building a very large home in the back. And so we limited the code to only permit ADUs at the rear of the property. I believe I captured most of it, Melissa.
I think so, yeah. Again, there's very limited discretion, so I think you've covered most of them. I think you covered all of them.
Right, so those were the only thing, that was the only thing we could do.
And then, so with this, are we saying that anything that's proposed to exceed that, we're not allowing?
Anything over 1,000 square feet, we are not allowing, correct.
Okay. Or anything over 16 feet in height.
And anything over 16 feet in height, correct.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I just wanted to, see if that, that could be a discussion, with the planning commission to see if, if it doesn't meet the state requirements, are they just not allowed, or would we require them to have discretionary approval for something that exceeds the basic state requirements? And then, maybe, limiting it to the 800 square feet, based on if that the lot is already, maxed out, instead of the 1,000 square feet.
So perhaps other commissioners have some thoughts on this?
I don't, no. Rula, did you have any?
I don't, sir. I mean,
The only other thing I could suggest is, it's important to have those discussions, they merit discussion. We only have 3 commissioners at this meeting, and there are 2 other commissioners that may want to participate. So Commissioner Caraveo, if you'd like, we could bring this back and have a little bit more we'll highlight a little bit more of what those changes were that Maria mentioned. Again, we really just tracked the state law. We didn't have a lot of discretion, but where we could, we did exercise it, and we could come back and just talk about those specific sections, and get your input with the full commission present. That's a possibility. It's really up to you. But if you're comfortable with the ordinance as is and you'd like to proceed, you can do that too. But that's something else that I think we could do. Maria, do you agree that we could do that?
Right, we can do that. But just a reminder that our existing ADU code is null and void. And so these parameters that have been placed in this particular ordinance are not there.
Right.
So they can build 1,200 square feet. They can designate the front unit as the ADU. So some of the discretion that we do have does not exist in the existing ADU regulations in our municipal code. So that would be the only thing I would caution.
Yeah, time is an issue. I mean, we are just at this point following state law, but if we want to be able to do something a little different, we do have to adopt this ordinance as soon as possible. And remember, it does have to go to the City Council after the Planning Commission for first reading, second reading, and then 30 days until it becomes effective. So we still even have some more time that we have to wait, even if you do adopt the resolution and recommend approval tonight.
I know this is a important document that we're getting ready to propose to City Council, and that's why I want to just make sure that all the commissioners are aware and have their inputs, and that make sure that we have all the information as far as what we can change, or if we even want to put in additional conditions that would allow somebody to, exceed the state requirements if their, property allows for it. Um, and just have those brought back, at a later meeting, maybe the next meeting or so. So that way we can get all the commissioners, inputs on, if we want to have that a thousand, max it at 1,000, reduced to 800 square feet for maybe lots that are already maxed out, or even allowing for units to be, taller than 16 feet, or just keeping it at the 16 feet in height, things like that, or if we would require discretionary approval if they exceed any of the state requirements for the ADU.
So it sounds like, what you're suggesting is that, and we can do this, you can proceed today with the recommendations that we've made, and then the next meeting, we could do a follow-up study session where we talk about some of these issues. We can always do follow-up ordinances if we need to, but at least there would be an ordinance in the pipeline that would address ADUs now as quickly as possible, so that we don't have to just, defer to state law. We could do that. And we can lay out all the possibilities, and, it's a study session, so you as commissioners can bring in other suggestions, whatever you've seen in other cities, and we can, talk about that. So that's one possibility.
So you're saying continue it as a study session, or?
No, what I'm suggesting is perhaps you may want to adopt what you have presently, and then we will do a follow-up study session where we gather more information, we give you some more of those details, you can give us further direction, and we can work on producing another ordinance that would make some follow-up changes to what we have presented to you today. It's just a suggestion. Maria, do you have any other suggestions? Because, it's true, we want to have a good discussion, but we also want to move forward.
Right.
If I may.
I agree with Melissa.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I, for one, do not have a problem with adopting it today. I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah.
I mean, it's at the pleasure of the planning commission, whatever you'd like to do.
I kind of like the idea of approving it today and then having a study session the next meeting or so, and look at other ideas and thoughts. And if need be, we can make an amendment down the road.
It's a compromise. I think it might work if you want to do that.
Yeah, I think so.
I would say that if we approve it today, then if we can change it to the maybe at least 850 square feet.
Change what to the 850?
The max.
The maximum.
Yeah.
Okay. Maria, do you want to address that about, the thoughts that we
so
had
I
about
know that state law specified up to 850 for one bedroom, and then 1,000 square feet for two bedrooms. The maximum that we must allow is 800 square feet. So we could go up to 850 and just cap it at that. There's no, as far as my understanding of the state regulations, there's no requirement that we have to allow 1,000 square feet. So 800 is just what we must allow. So if we recommend 850, are we also capping the number of bedrooms to one?
That's where I was going to maybe interject, is that my recollection is that it did need to be, the max could be 1,200.
1,000.
Right? And so 1,000 was
for two
the
bedrooms.
minimum if it was more than one bedroom. So
Right.
So I think that part, the way it's written, is consistent with state law.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can still go to 850 with one bedroom if that's the desire of the planning commission.
Right.
I would say at least for now, and then, once we have that study session, we could, possibly change it.
So you would like to change, and I apologize, I don't have a copy of, I'm gonna pull up the ordinance right now to see what section that's in, but you wanted to change the cap that we put in of 800 to 850?
The maximum size, it
The
would
maximum,
be section.
so instead of 1,000, it'll be 850.
So that would be, through the chair, I apologize, that would be
Right ahead.
section 17.21.060. And that's
And-
the table that specifies the maximum.
You know, I need to go back and check, but I think that table was just consistent with state
With state
law. I
code,
don't think we
yeah.
could lower it to 850. I think it had to be up to 1,000, unless I'm misunderstanding, what you're suggesting.
I know what
I
we
am
do
looking real
for,
quick.
It is really nuanced, and it's like I have to at this time thank Maria, because she did a really, really good job reviewing this. It's very complicated. It's two sets of laws and lots of legislators trying to insert their changes. So it's not very easy to understand. But my recollection is that the table probably needs to stay the way that it is. I might suggest that. I might suggest again that you just keep it as is, and that at the next meeting we can delve a little bit into the 800, 850, and 1,000, because it is a little complicated. And I'd hate to have you make that recommendation now and then have to come back to you later and say, no, actually we looked at it again and state law requires otherwise. So
Yes,
Maria,
if I may interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair. The state law says a maximum square footage requirement for either an attached or detached accessory dwelling unit that is less than either of the following: 850 square feet or 1,000 square feet for an ADU that provides more than one bedroom.
Right.
So, yeah, it's in the state law, and it is very nuanced.
That's what we have to keep it as. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay. Any more questions?
I
Jason?
mean, if I may, through the chair, I mean, I know that sometimes maybe not all of us agree on something, but when it's state law, I do understand that our hands are tied. And again, I'm just going to reiterate that I do not have a problem with approving it as is for today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, through the chair, if I may, in reading the state law, it also requires us to provide for the development of a what does it say specifically? An efficiency unit. So that's why you see that minimum in that table. So the minimum of an efficiency unit and the maximum of 1,000 square feet for more than one bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot to look at. I think again that we could have that discussion. We can bring it back to the next meeting, in fact, which the July 15th meeting. Maria, we could be ready to do that on the 15th, right?
Yes, we can. Yeah. No, the state law, it's nuanced, but again, it's very clear. It says it shall not establish by ordinance any of the following.
Right.
So to prohibit an efficiency unit and the maximum square footages requirements of less than 850 or 1,000. But we can come back. We will be ready and make sure. But in reading it as is, it does prohibit us.
Yeah.
Melissa, this is Greg.
Hi, Greg.
The council meeting that we planned on taking this to was for July 28th, correct?
Yes, that's the earliest we could get it on the agenda, I think.
So even with the next commission meeting is the 15th?
Yes.
So if there's any changes that all 5 members make at that time, Commissioner, it would make it in time to be reflected in the ordinance that goes before the council, correct?
Yeah, actually, that's true, because as long as the planning commission makes that recommendation, we could incorporate that into the ordinance that's presented to the council. We'll notice it, but our noticing will be ADU generally, so we
Yeah.
will probably have some leeway to be able to change some of the language. That's a really good point, Greg.
So I think
We can do that, so we could do
yeah.
that.
So I think it
Yeah.
satisfies all three of your concerns. Two would like to adopt it today with the potential to change. Commissioner Caravelle, though you may not like that, having that meeting on the 15th will still allow time to make those changes before it goes to council. So everyone kind of gets what they're looking for.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Right. We would have to, what we do is, this is a little unusual, but we'd probably have to adopt it, and this is a public hearing, so we'd have to just continue the public hearing as well, so that we don't have to renotice, because we might have an issue with, noticing, Greg. If we'd have to have it in the paper for another meeting on the 2nd. But I think we can do that. I think it's okay. It's fine. So you could adopt it today, but keep the public hearing open and continue the public hearing to July 15th.
That sounds right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm with that.
okay. So we can do that.
Okay. So is there anyone else who wants to address the commission on the issue? We have anybody waiting in the waiting room or?
We
the
do not.
room?
No.
Okay. Are there any documents to place into the administrative record?
No, we do not have any.
Okay. So do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or questions from staff? Okay.
Nope.
I'm assuming if you don't say anything that you're either shaking your head on. All right.
Yeah.
I now formally close the public hearing on this item. Oh, no, we don't
That's
want.
the part we're gonna change. So we're not closing the public hearing.
No,
We're going to, if you make a motion, I'll just add to the motion that we're continuing the public hearing to that date. So if you go ahead and someone can make a motion in a second, we'll add that and take the vote.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay?
Okay, I'll second.
Okay. So there's a motion to adopt Planning Commission Resolution 50-50-12, recommending the City Council adopt ordinance 2205, as well as a motion to continue the public hearing on this item to July 15th at 6 via Zoom.
Okay.
So I will go ahead and take the vote,
Yes,
Chairman?
Please,
Okay,
call
Chair-
for the vote.
Thank you. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Caravello.
Yes.
Okay, so with 3 commissioners approving, the resolution and the recommendation are approved, and the continuance of the public hearing are approved as well. Thank you.
So we'll now recess the planning commission and call back to order the airport zoning commission. Airport zoning commission consent calendar. There are no items. Airport zoning commission new continued public hearings. There are no items. We'll call back to order the planning commission concurrently with the airport zoning commission. Are there any administrative items?
No,
No?
there are no items.
Commissioner reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report on?
Just really quickly, I just want to say that on the 22nd of June, we lost an icon of the community, Miss Darlene Love.
Yeah.
She was an amazing person. She was the first African American woman to have a seat on the Civil Service Commission at a time that was very unkind. And I just want to say that she will be dearly missed, and she was dearly loved. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No one else has anything to report, then we will adjourn the meeting at 7:32. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody happy July 1st.
Thank you.